The Fires of Heaven by Robert Jordan. This is without a doubt one of the best books in the Wheel of Time series in my opinion, definitely the upper echelon. I enjoy it immensely, and that's not just because of the great plot, great world building, character work, story focus, pacing, but it's kind of special connection to me because I remember my first read through of Wheel of Time after putting this book down. This is the one where I had the thought, okay, this series is going to be with me forever. This is going to be something I'm coming back and rereading probably until I die, because this one hits hard. Fires of Heaven slaps. Is that what the kids say? It slaps.
It's actually, I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
I'm not going to get into a detailed summary here. I already have my summary of Fire of Heaven up on this channel, so if you want to go see that, link in the description down below. It's a really old video with terrible sound quality and all that, so sorry about that. But what I really want to focus on here is where I feel Robert Jordan put the most effort in for this story. Fires of Heaven, in my opinion, really focuses on the farm boys and girls we've been following at this point, entering their next stages of life. The main party is really at this point too far gone to ever go back to being the same people we've seen before. They are battle-hardened, they are truly different. They're becoming their adult selves. You forget we're following essentially kids when the series first kicks off. They're much younger than me myself. And at this point, they've seen and been through enough to any standard be called adults. And so right away, we're seeing for the first time these characters having sex with each other and kind of just dealing with more mature themes, entering these next stages of true adulthood, which is spectacular. I think there's pretty clear signs to Robert Jordan this is happening. Whether it's the less insecure thoughts coming out all the time, they're a bit more sure of themselves all around, them finally taking aggressive action and making things happen instead of it feels like a lot of the times things just happening to them, except for Rand in The Dragon Reborn. That was just him taking control. But in a stupid way. Now these people are feeling like figures who could be the leaders. They're getting there. They're not quite there yet, but that change is happening. And as a beautiful result, the dynamics between these characters are changing drastically as well. Obviously, the dynamic between Rand and everyone else has been on shaky ground because of who and what he is since book 2. But that insecurity is now spreading like a disease to everyone's relationships. And that's where the theme of friendship among the Wheel of Time, again, just comes back so strong. These characters are realizing everyone around me, even my longest term friends, are going to have ulterior motives. There's everyone working for a different end game and goal here. And while they do still remain friends, it's like seeing other responsibilities come to the forefront is something they never considered, except for with Rand. The most blatant and obvious example of this is Matt's trying to get Rand's attention and he seems to be ignoring him. This is really at the beginning of the book and mild spoiler warning. And finally, to get Rand's attention, Matt just yells, "Lose Theron!" And Rand turns around and there's this kind of awkward tension between them because of what just happened. Matt exploited something he knew would get Rand's attention and kind of hates that it worked, but he knew that it would. This isn't something I could see Matt from book 1 doing, or really any of the young kids doing to each other. But when I first read that, I thought, that's different, that's a change. And throughout the rest of the series, these people are re-gauging each other and re-trying to balance how they sit as friends and sometimes even borderline family, but with weight on each other. All of them have these different responsibilities they need to start caring about, and those responsibilities really start getting layered on to every character here, aside for Rand, because once again, Rand's been ahead of everyone a little bit and having these responsibilities shoved on him since book 1. And the women have had a bit of more responsibility. Obviously, they've been sent on missions from the White Tower, but now the other characters as well are having heavy responsibility shucked on. Perrin's had his as well. Matt's kind of just catching up, but I feel like it's now just no longer about those responsibilities building, but it becomes about how those responsibilities that each one cares about will conflict with the others. Everyone's fighting for the light, but what do they prioritize within the light? Robert Jordan also just plays with power dynamics a lot within this story, from the very obvious example of when Aviendha and Rand are in an igloo of having sex. Aviendha really started that. Typically in a fantasy story, you have the man initiate sex, but this was really just Aviendha saying, I'm not waiting anymore, we're banging.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
So that's the setup of Fires of Heaven in my opinion. All these characters are moving out of the angsty teen phase, moving into being adults with responsibilities they take priority with. All of them making their own decisions as individual agents. Some got here before others, but in Fires of Heaven, everyone really reaches that role. Matt just more or less at the end of the book whenever he starts becoming a general. Obviously, this leads to Moiraine having more conflict with everyone across the party than ever. I remember also taking note in this story that Moiraine, the woman who once felt like this all-controlling, all-knowing Aes Sedai, now feels more like an exhausted talented mother who can't keep track of all of her children running around, because they are all starting to have their own agency and making their own decisions, and they're not just relying on her. So she's just come on, get back here, listen to me. And this accumulates in her basically taking a fealty oath to Rand just so he will let her stay around. Again, someone to us as the reader felt like they were in complete control of this young idiot farm boy has to basically bend the knee to him, which pisses Lan off to no end. I've talked a lot about culture in the Wheel of Time up until this point, and I do want to just touch on it here again, because while we've had the Aiel culture explored so magnificently in previous books, here we get the first real instances of Aiel culture being forced to blend and mesh with the established wetland culture, and Rand giving out proclamations to try and ease the process, and it being difficult. Another realistic take of what happens in the real world when you try to make cultures mingle. There's going to be clashes. That's not a racism thing or anything. Basically, just look at history. Every time two cultures meet at first, there is tension. I think Rome's entire history is them having tension with other cultures, whether it's religion-based or just practices-based, that just things aren't going to mush. And with the Aiel, it's largely practice-based because the religions are all the same here. But that's something I haven't seen many fantasy authors take the time to do, an in-depth dive of how cultures would mingle whenever these conquests are happening. And the answer is not smoothly, surprisingly. Not smoothly at all.
Why can't we all just get along?
I just find Fire of Heaven to be a masterwork of how Robert Jordan handles relationships, whether it is relationships between cultures, people. He's taking the time and effort to recognize not only character growth and execute that character growth extraordinarily well, but then look at the ramifications of that growth and who these people are turning into and how it would change their friendships and dynamics between those friends. These farm boys and girls are now becoming leaders. That's gonna shake it up. But of course the theme of friendship stays strong to the core. At no point does it feel like these people are being petty or vindictive towards each other, because that'll never be the case. There is still a core of love throughout the series at all given times between the Two Rivers folk and their friends they make along the way who are on that level, like Elaine and stuff like that. And I can't really mention Fire of Heaven without saying this, but there are also just amazing battles and fights in this story and villainy things, and I just didn't want to focus on that in this review. But there's a lot more to this story than what I've just touched on. But in terms of my review for it, I want my review of Fires of Heaven to focus on what I think Robert Jordan himself focused on. And I believe I've done that, but yeah, there are a lot of cool stabby shoot bang pals. In fact, let's just end this review on the note that as a reader first time through and second time through, this is where, in my opinion, the magic systems that are employed in the Wheel of Time really began to reach their full potential. Obviously, they were really well done before here, but just seeing the more casual uses that are brought to us in Fires of Heaven and seeing kind of new things being learned, all these different just worlds and dimensions explored at one point, that was just, again, a game changer that as I was reading this book, I just went, and became more and more invested. Books 1, 2, and 3 were Robert Jordan exploring his own ideas of what can work in fantasy and adding a couple different genre twists here and there. Book 4 was Robert Jordan building this incredible world and expanding the cultures and horizons to make it a truly epic fantasy. And now book 5, to me, it feels like he's taking a step back, looking at the characters and their positioning within these wider, incredible worlds and stakes and scales and cultures, and seeing how the friendships he has established to this point would respond to this. And that's the beauty of Fires of Heaven, one of my favorite Wheel of Time books, and if you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do. Obviously, this review did have some spoilers, so meh. Anyway, guys, if you have not already, like and subscribe. Hit the Patreon if you want to support the channel. Again, thank you to my patrons. I've had an influx recently, and you guys are just amazing, and are the reason that my next studio at my next apartment that I'm going to move to in early June will be a lot nicer. So thank you for that. If you want to see my channel continue to upgrade and improve, and maybe me many years down the road eventually do this full time, hit the Patreon, show the support of the channel. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Peace.